We live. Hey everyone, I got 2 people in here already. Welcome. I'm going to give it a couple of 30 seconds or 40 seconds to have people come in. But if you're on here, I would love, my sweater kind of matches some of the yellows in here. I need to do some layers of art, I think, to switch this background up a little bit. So it's not the same thing every day. Okay, so let's I'm just going to start. I don't know if that was 30 seconds, probably not, but it's hard for me to just sit here for 30 seconds because one of the things that I always get frustrated with when lives go on is like the small talk at the beginning. So I will go ahead and dive in. Welcome everyone that's on here. If you would, I would love to see where you're from, or if you have a question on anything we've covered this week so far, please by all means leave it in the chat. Good morning, Christine from Colorado. Pretty much every day if I go outside, I'll do a video of some sort. And I have the same hat on from Pagosa Springs and representing Colorado. It's one of my favorite places. And my husband and I always say and it's a really small if, but if we ever go back to the States, Colorado would probably be the place that we go to. But we got London. Hi, Kazembe. Welcome again. I'm so happy to see your. It's not your face, it's your name. So I'm starting to get familiar with some of y'all, and it's really exciting. Laura, hi from Chicago. I used to live in Chicago, in Lincoln Park. God, it's been so long ago now. What is the name? Lincoln. Wow, I think it's Lincoln Park, but I know that's a band too, so I don't know if I'm getting it confused. Laura, help me if that's not right. Right by Wrigleyville and all of that. Greetings from Panama City Beach. Welcome, Carol. Thanks for being here, you all. Well, I wanted to Connecticut. Okay, I don't know, Heather, if I've seen Connecticut yet. I don't know. I think I've seen your name on here, maybe, but not sure if I recognize Connecticut. Yes, Lincoln Park. Okay, thank you. I thought I was going crazy. It was a million years ago, but it was like in my 20s and I had zero responsibility and living in Chicago and that beautiful area. And it was a really fun time. I absolutely loved it there. I was working downtown and man, I'll tell you what, I complain about the cold here, but I was telling my husband, we've talked about it a couple of times since we've been here in Ukraine in the cold. I'm like, yeah, this is about the same as when I lived in Chicago and had to take the L train to work and getting up on that platform when it was windy as all hell and bundled all up, scarf around the head. And man, that's some serious winter there for sure. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and jump in at this moment. I wanted to first thank, so I had someone buy me a coffee yesterday in support of yesterday's daily tune in, and her name was Victoria. And I want to say thank you. I want to say a personal thank you to Victoria. I did, of course, on typing her an email, but I shared her. I shared the little thank you that she shared with me in the chat up here, and I want to kind of explain it a little bit. So she said, your channeling and the fact that you share it for free is so incredible. I love that. You are a huge part of my Ascension team, and I'm so grateful. Keep going onward and upward. I share that not to toot my own horn, but I cannot tell you how much that one comment changed everything for me yesterday. And I want to share this because it ties into this whole conversation about consciousness and what we bring to the world. I know it's so hard sometimes to wrap our heads around the fact that just one comment or one small blessing, even though someone may not even know they've gotten it, can make all of the difference for someone. Last night, after I finished this, I had a call with our Ascension, a couple of Ascension Bank members. We had our Ascension Circle and had a beautiful time. And I was kind of like really high. I was like high vibing, the whole high vibing thing, just really in a really good consciousness. And I did the dumbest thing we could possibly do when we're in that state. And I got on Instagram and immediately was just like shrunken down. I responded to a comment that I had gotten from a comment that I had made. And it was someone who doesn't have the perspective that we have on consciousness, or that I have on consciousness. I'll speak for me. And it was like, it was kind of ugly, it was yucky, and it hit on every trigger that I had of being afraid of talking about these topics online and in public as much as I do now. A lot of my journey has been quieter, especially in these last few years, where I went through a massive, massive growth spurt in consciousness, in frequency, and in life experience, and a lot of my gifts have kind of really, I call them my gifts, but we all have very unique gifts, so you have them too. Mine, in particular, my unique ones came, blasting open, and I've been calibrating to them, and figuring out what is, how do I help, how do I use these gifts. And I finally got the courage to start doing these kind of conversations online live earlier a few months ago. But I'm not saying that it's been easy. It's been very nerve wracking, because when I have had anything that's close to these kind of conversations with anyone that I have has been close to me, they haven't been received very well and have been diminished. And it has made me very much doubt myself and doubt my gifts. And so I kind of closed down to that conversation in public for few years. So coming out with these is extremely scary to me, and it takes a lot of courage to come on here. And yesterday, that person just triggered all of it. And it took me back to the name calling thing. Like, I didn't call him names, but the names being called to me, and what I was doing, and how, it wasn't in integrity, and how, like, all the things. I'm not going to give it, too much light, but it was all the words that triggered a lot in me. So I dealt with it on my own, and I went to I put the phone down and decided that I was just going to veg out. My husband and I have been watching a good show on Netflix, and we went on with our night, and I worked through it, and it was fine. But I will tell you, when I opened up my email and saw that Victoria had bought me a coffee, and this was the message that she had, it was exactly what I needed in that moment to balance out the fear that I had of, maybe I just need to shut this down again and just do my silent blessings as I go throughout the day. But it was exactly what I needed to know to keep going another day, to show up here and to talk about weird stuff again today that may challenge people, and may challenge even you. And sometimes, I will tell you, it challenges me. But all of that to say is, this is the time that we have all been brought here for. So if you are having gifts, if your gifts are coming up and you want to share something and do it from a place of love, please do it, because we all know that everyone's in a different place, and everyone's getting beat up, from within. We're all in that phase of, oh my God, what are these times doing? I'm changing, I'm growing, and I'm clashing and colliding with people I never clashed and collided with, and I'm getting these new ideas, and I'm nervous of them. And we are all trying to figure this out together, what's happening within us, and still being brave to move forward as our higher selves, and into these bodies, and into these new consciousnesses that don't feel comfortable. And there are still those, I'm going to, like, fragmented souls, the fragmented souls who are in fear, and are afraid of change, and are afraid of new information, or afraid of anything that challenges them, that are coming at all of us, that are brave enough to actually show these changes within ourselves. So all of that to say, expect that that's still happening. And if we shut down, and if we go within and forget about it, then all of this work is for nothing. We end up in the same world that we were. So I'm here another day because of someone like you guys, who show up here and send your love, and send the hearts, through this chat. And for people that say, what, I like what you said, I'm going to buy her a coffee, and do something like that, it means the world. So we are here to to lift each other up, and to just, when one of us is down, it takes another one to rise up and say, keep going, you go another day. And then when that person does that, we reach down and pull someone else up who might be having a tough day, because that's how it's done, y'all. That's how it's done in consciousness. That's just how we continue in this spiritual. Again, I don't like using the word war, but I find myself using it because that's what it feels like. We are in a spiritual war of growth versus, you know, non-growth, stagnancy, and people wanting to stay in the old paradigms. But we are creating new paradigms. So thank you, Victoria, for that beautiful message, because I'm not so sure you understand what a big deal that was for me. So thank you. Okay, so let's get into the changes in consciousness that occurred. So I want to preface this by saying the consciousness conversation is what is expanding us as we get more and more information, and we get more and more, and a lot of information comes from our experiences with being open to what's happening with our growth. The expansion of our consciousness is nothing really we ever have been taught. There isn't a, I mean, there's a lot of books and things like that out there that we can read and understand it, but until we experience it, that experience has it then become truth to each of us. So we're here exchanging information on what is the experience of growth in consciousness. What does that look like? I'm sharing my experience with you so that you can hear it in a practical term. I'm okay. I'm vulnerable enough to share my life experiences with expanding in consciousness. So it gives you some context, so that then we can share in the Ascension Bank on our Ascension Circle calls every Wednesday. We then share each other. Everybody else gets a chance to share their experiences, so we can start to hear and connect together. What does it look like when our consciousness expands? As far as like studies and things like that, we don't have a whole lot of tangible science. The consciousness is not something you can cut out of a cadaver and study. So it's this ethereal thing that many people are unsure of. It's scary. Some people don't even know that it even exists. um, Many of us are like, that's all that exists, and we're putting this experiential knowledge to practice. And yet, as we practice, we then start, that's how we build our trust in it. Only through experiencing an expansion in consciousness is how we get to know what the truth of consciousness is. So when I share anything on these daily tune-ins, you get to choose what resonates with you and leave behind. If there's something that takes you beyond where you can even like not comprehend, like beyond what you can comprehend. I'm not saying it that way, but if it takes you a little too far, then just leave it. But what resonates with you, then hold that in as something that is touching on something that's truthful for you, because we all have our own experience. But these are things that have happened in our programming over the last couple of years that is helping us now to then expand in consciousness in an accelerated manner, so we can catch up to where we need to be in order to change to completely change the frequency and the consciousness of our entire planet. So all of this has been going on behind the scenes. I started to touch on it yesterday, but I'm going to go through just a really quick review of yesterday. We talked about the last few months of 2019 was to prepare. We had some things that were given to us as far as in consciousness. So we had the harmonic convergence of individuals coming together with the consciousness in mind to help raise a frequency in the collective. And that harmonic convergence met the frequency that allowed our higher selves, or I am presence, whatever you want to call it, our souls, to activate the 12 fifth dimensional strands of solar DNA within us. We have 12 strands of DNA, and each of those strands have 12 strands. And each of those, now most of those are still not activated yet, but in 2019, we were able to activate those fifth dimensional strands again, like I said, and each of those 12 fifth dimensional strands resonate with a resonant energy center within us. We do have 12 energy centers that are working with us. We know of the seven, which are, the seven chakras that we typically are on all over the internet and stuff, but we actually have 12 that are associated with our multidimensional physical being. So when became activated, and that harmonic convergence, harmonics, and I think I did a daily tune on this weeks ago about the harmonics. Many people are hearing more and more ringing in their ears. Okay, I'm going to call it ringing. It's a tone, right? And this tone is how these harmonics are activating our through frequency, are activating a lot of the changes that are happening within us. As this happens, as we rise in frequency, the harmonics of those tones change. And I had a very visceral experience with this just last night on our Ascension Circle members call. And after we were completed with our circle, I asked one of the members if she would just kind of ground us into a beautiful space and send out some blessings to our planet and help everybody to kind of feel all of the energy that we created in our circle. And as I sat in silence when she was doing that, I could hear the tones in my ears changing. And it happens a lot. I can tell when I'm in a higher frequency, when I rise up, or when sometimes when energies come in, the tones change. And now I'm understanding more and more what those tones mean. And as they rise up in frequency, I know that there are different parts of my body, and my body, meaning my multidimensional body, that are receiving updates, are receiving changes. So when that harmonic convergence came together in 2019, the frequency rose so much in intentionality for our collective planetary energy that it activated within every human and that has DNA, which is pretty much everybody, unless they're robots of some sort. We then their 12 fifth dimensional DNA strands of solar strands were activated. So through that harmonic rise in frequency. Okay, so hopefully that makes a little bit of sense. So then that was in August of 2019. Then we moved to December 12th of 2019, 12/12, and then 2019 is a 12, is a 12 year. So we were in 12/12/12. Okay, so this on that day, that 12/12 portal day, that activated the divine feminine within each person, within each individual. 12/12 through coding. Remember, our DNA is all coded. Like just like somebody codes these MacBooks and our smartphones through numeric coding first, we are also numerically coded. Everything breaks down to numbers. And 12/12 was encoded within our DNA when we reincarnated. Okay. So here's I want to give you a little, because it's like, what, but here's the thing. I'm going to go back to the example of technology of my MacBook here. It's the thing that I adore, this computer. I always have adored it. And I've used MacBooks for, years now. And I've had a few of them. And every time I get a new one, they look different, right? They have different processors in them. So this one that I have the MacBook Air, the new, whatever, the newest one. When I got this one, I knew that it was different from the last one. The programming was different, the processor was different, the style of it was different. So every time a new generation of MacBook comes out, it is updated into the most technologically advanced processing operating system, right? We know that. We know that for our phones. That's why people line up when a new iPhone comes out, because they want the one that is the fanciest, the most sleek, and the most up to date. Source consciousness does that for almost every new generation of human that comes out too, right? So when we reincarnated or reincarnated, in our DNA was a new update, a new code in our DNA that was a 1212 code. This was what I'm going to call it, because as this is coming in, I'm like, oh, and this is terminology that we'll know right now. It was our spiritual booster shot. Okay. And I'm going to be a little snarky here. This is the booster shot you want. Okay. This is the one that is actually going to do some work for you. Okay. Yes, that's very snarky, but um, this 1212 serves, 1212 code serves as the catalyst for our accelerated awakening once it is activated within the fifth dimensional strands of DNA. Okay. So this was activated on 1212 codes, catalyst codes were activated on 12/12/2019, which is 12. Okay. That is going to be used for the accelerated awakening that we were preparing for the decade of 2020 to 2030. I was just telling my husband, I was reading, and of course, this message came through, I don't know, Monday or Tuesday. And just last night, I was reading something about in our world, we are going to see more changes in technology, in our systems between 2020, in the decade of 2020 to 2030, than we saw the same amount in that 10-year decade than we saw in 1900 to 2000 in that 100 years. Okay. So we are in for some massive changes. And these are changes in our favor. And we also, and remember, we're also spiritually in that is the time when we accelerate quickly into that new earth consciousness, into that unified consciousness, that fifth dimensional consciousness. It is going to look in the physical like massive, massive growth as well. So we have to prepare all parts of us physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually for this. So we have been consistently upgraded and coded for this very time that you and I are sitting on this call right now in this decade. So those 1212 catalyst codes were activated on 121212 so that we could prepare for this new decade. So I want to tell you a little bit about this new decade that we're in on a spiritual level, okay? This is the time in 2020, obviously, a couple months in, 3 months in, was when everything went down, right? In the physical world as we know it. The pandemic, everything opened up. We went into a forced lockdown. We saw a lot of darkness with that. We've seen, and it's been this beautiful gift because not on one hand, we've been able to see and reveal a lot of the underlying deception that has been underlying in the foundational systems that we operate in. So it's been here to clear a lot of that. Clearing meaning to expose a lot of that, which we're going to keep seeing as we've been talking about in 2022. On the other hand, it gave us all in humanity a time to go within, right? So many who had to just stop and stop working and go within into their home, so to speak, but also it allowed much of humanity to develop the latent abilities and literally start transfiguring the outer world experiences into the heart-based patterns of perfection. We've talked about the patterns of perfection back in December on these daily tune-ins. What this means is it allowed for us to start integrating those 1212 codes. We have to integrate things before we put them to use, right? So we were starting in this timeout, this global timeout. We were able to go within to really reconnect with what we wanted in life. We started to question more, and this is totally in alignment with my own experience as well. 2020 came, and within months of going into lockdown, my husband and I were like, you know what? We're not doing the same thing when we come out of this. we're going to do something completely different. Going into 2020, I thought I'd still be doing my normal life, living in Austin, Texas, all the things. And now I'm sitting in Ukraine. So everything started to speed up for us on a spiritual level to align with our soul frequency. And what did that, what helped us do that was those 12 fifth dimensional strands of our solar DNA that were also catalyzed and activated by the massive amounts of energy that started pouring in 2020. But almost every single day of 2021, we were blasted with energies. And I will tell you, we're getting blasted right now. I was walloped earlier. I had to take a nap because these energies are so big right now. They're so big because this is how the mass awakening is happening. Everyone is getting their fifth dimensional DNA is just getting walloped by these high frequencies that we have never been exposed to, and that's how this mass awakening is being sped up. So the degree of collaboration between the unseen world, our guides, our ancestors, our galactic teams, the elders, source consciousness, the degree in which that realm collaborated with humanity to come together without overstepping our ability to choose for ourselves, it has greatly accelerated our evolution as humans. We are evolving into superhumans simply not because we might have some great strength, I don't know, but mostly because the strength that we have is in our super conscious way. We are awakening into these gifts and these abilities that were supposed to be very natural to us, but were through those old paradigms and through that old coding, those corrupted codings that we had, shut those supernatural abilities that we had. The supernatural abilities were us to connect into those higher realms and pull in information so we could then express that in physical form. All of that is what's going to accelerate then the development or the redevelopment, the recreation of this decade that we're in. That's why it's going to accelerate so fast, and it's going to be in our favor, because when we create from a higher consciousness, that higher consciousness is unified. So when we create from a unified place with humanity all being unified in a higher level of consciousness, we create systems, we create newness, we create new worlds for all. And that is the reality that is now being created, because we've already covered that the old paradigms, the old energetic fuel for those old paradigms has been dismantled. That just needs to fall away. And that's what's happening every single day. Now you get on, you see something more exposed, from the healthcare systems to, what's going on with Fauci. Like, this is the dismantling. It's happening. It's going down. And we are now in that massive activation. So if you are hermiting in, it's because you're rising so high. You have to just you have to be with it at this moment, because then once we calibrate to these higher frequencies and everything comes online. 2022 is when everything comes online. Remember, we talked about the power centers in December. All of those come online each month. A new one comes online in 2022. So by the end of 2022, we're going to hit the ground running. We're all going to be doing our part in 2022 to kind of acclimate to the energies of what's being activated within, and the energies in which we are now living in the frequency of Earth. And then our super conscious comes online, and we start to connect, and we start to integrate with how to work with it, what to do with it, what is our mission, what is our unique spot here, what do we do. And every day is a new step in all of that. So by the end of 2022, we're now a unified humanity, and becoming more and more unified as more and more and more come online as well. And we then start to blast into a completely new reality and create that reality for the rest of this decade. Okay. Let's see what else. Then we moved into, okay, I'm almost done, y'all, because I know I'm like feeling my energy. Like this is a lot. So then we moved into December 21st of 2020, okay? The convergence of Jupiter and Saturn. I don't know if you were, remembering this, but this was a super exciting day. It only happens every so many years, and Jupiter and Saturn had a convergence. And that was supposedly, not supposedly, but when in the year that Jesus's birth, the convergence happened, which is what the Star of David was, in the sky. It was a really big day, and I have a funny story about that. I might just save it, but I was like preparing for this day. Actually, I'm gonna share it because it's pretty funny now. I can laugh about it. But on 20 on the great convergence, I wanted to be in a sacred space in nature, and my husband and I decided we were going to go for a hike, and we were going to have this like beautiful time in nature. And I think it was like at 12:23 of that day was when the convergence was rising. So we were gonna, or at its peak, where I wanted to be meditating, and I had the whole visual. So before we went for a hike, we went to this healthy healing store in Austin, because my husband wanted to get some crystals. He was making this beautiful wand, and so we went in, and again, we were in the height of 2020, so everybody was still freaking out about everything, and so he went in before me for some reason. And when I went to go in, the kid that was working, he was like some kid, and he was like, my mask wasn't right, and he wanted me to put Purell all over, and I had like natural stuff, and I hate that Purell shit. It's like toxic as anything. So I was like, how is this a healing store and you're making me put Purell on, and like, what's wrong with my mask? And it was like, it was a normal mask. So I got in this like fight with the kid because I was pissed off and I didn't want to comply. So I couldn't get to my husband because he was already in the store and he was waiting for me. But I went out to the parking lot, and the parking lot was underneath like the overpass for I-35, which is like a major thoroughfare in Austin. So it was loud. It was like not the greatest part of town. So there was like nothing nice about it. And the great convergence came of Jupiter and Saturn that I had been anticipating for months and had this beautiful image of. But y'all, I sat out there in the middle of that freaking parking lot. I had my hand on my heart, and I stopped and I paused and I gave as much love as I could muster. And I mustered a lot because I could feel it coming from my heart. I bawled my eyeballs out because I was so just drained from the world at that point. And I didn't know how long it was still going to be going on, but I was just over with, the whole COVID stuff and all of that crap. But I just sat, and I was so full, and I gave all my heart. And at that point, I didn't know really what that day was, but what it was this is when, oh, this is so beautiful too. This is when, through our teams, the unseen realms of beautiful beings that are helping us with this mass awakening. This is when they helped us create sacred space for every human to elevate our breath into a holy breath. And this allows us to now receive higher frequencies with every breath. So when this came through earlier this week, I remembered that day because when I was done with that meditation, I got in my car, or in our car, and I lost my shit. Like I went into victim mode. I'm like, this is a healing store, and they don't even know what's going on. And I was in the parking lot, and my husband came out. And he's like, ready to go hiking. I was like, no, I just want to go home. I like lost it. I was like I was crazy. And we were in the process of like letting go of all of our home and everything. We were selling off things. Nothing felt comfortable. It was a lot, but it was funny because I look back on like how I just lost it that day. And when I read this, but I know that I did stop and I gave that sacred time into that moment because I knew it was important. And maybe I didn't fully understand it, but I felt really, really strongly how important it was. And what I didn't know was that each of us, everything within us was being activated, so that every breath we breathed after that was a holy breath. And that holy breath now helps us acclimate to these higher frequencies. It helps us send with every exhale. Helps us send our energy out into the world. And man, like that's a beautiful thing. We are now fully able to take that booster shot that we got in the when our 1212 catalyst codes were activated. When we got that booster shot, now our breath is the breath that boosts those frequencies out, those frequencies of love and those frequencies of unity and those frequencies of love and light and beauty and abundance and all of those fifth dimensional codes that are now being breathed into humanity every time you take a breath and every time you breathe out. You are breathing out those fifth dimensional codes, and those are at such high frequency that they're in those higher realms of love and beauty and the Christ consciousness and all of the things that we've worked so hard to get to. So when you come into conscious communion with your breath, and like remember how sacred it is, especially now. It always is, but especially now. And that became the way that became your norm. Like everybody was saying in that time, I want to go back to normal. What became normal was our breath being more and more sacred and calibrating to these higher frequencies. That's what's all been going on behind the scenes. What resonates with you, take it. What doesn't, leave it behind. This is the new programming of you, and this has all been done in our favor. So although these last 2 years with our visual eyes, have seemed very chaotic, it has felt very scary and fear based for some time, including for myself. I'm in this world too, and although I could see a lot of it, I could see from a higher perspective that a lot of it didn't add up. It doesn't take away the fact that there was fears, there was some fear, but because of that, on this side, on the unseen side, there was so much within that was working in our favor for us to be able to take a break, to be able to reevaluate, to be able to sit, look at this wasn't serving us and what do we want with our lives. And at the same time, all of these activations were going on within us. So much has gone on within us that now we were completely changed from the inside out. We are changing from that carbon-based body to the crystalline body. We are changing from a fourth dimensional energetic self that was very dense with fear and pain and suffering and trauma, and we have transcended into lighter and lighter and lighter beings as we do they do that work. And the more all of this happens, the more we've come into a more aligned state with our soul frequency, with the true essence of who we are. So we have been pulling ourselves in to an integrated multidimensional operating system that we never would have been able to do in such a quick amount of time in our linear time had it not been for these last 2 years. So there is this side of it that has been a beautiful and sacred time out for us to really come up into these energies, and it has been divinely designed for that. That helps me. That has helped me this week in integrating this message to really pull in how sacred of a time these last 2 years have been, even though they've been hard as shit for many of us. And they have challenged us and they have triggered us. And yet that everything that had to be triggered within us is triggered and will probably still be triggered, but we are now coming into that higher consciousness that the triggers won't hurt so much because now we know what's happening. We know that we are just updating every single day into a higher consciousness of an operating system so that we can then take the lead in this next decade to truly create a whole new earth. This is a beautiful, beautiful honor for us to be able to do. Excuse me on that, but let me go back and see what you guys have to say. Appreciate and love the sharing and support you give us daily. Having the knowing and know where to speak of it in comfort and safety is so fabulous. Yeah, thank you so much. It really is. Like there aren't many conversations that we can have in this context. Doing it publicly is scary as anything, but somebody's got to do it so that we can bring all of you together and let you know that you aren't the only one. That's how we unify, is by knowing that, okay, somebody else hears and says things and believes these things that I just can't find evidence of, but I can just feel. And that's it. Like, so much of where we are going from here on out is going to be based more on our knowing, and we are going to have to go less to the internet to find evidence of things, because that is the true nature of who we are. The true nature of human, human evolution has not involved the internet. It has been a true divine connection with the higher realms, with nature. And although it's great, technology is amazing, it has taken away so much of our trust in ourselves. But from here on out, we're going to be rising more and more in the knowing and the trusting of our innate abilities. This is so validating. Thank you. Oh, your birthday is 12/12. Lucky. That's exciting. I think that would be great to have your birthday on a portal day. Because Zemby said, my life completely changed after the 12/12 activation. My consciousness expanded to a point where I thought I was losing my mind. Yeah, it's good to finally know what was happening. Yeah, and that's like, again, that's why we all come together, because we're like, man, am I losing it? Because I don't think anything like I used to. And then we have people who in our lives who are like, you're changing, and it seems like it's a bad thing, or like, who have you become? And you're like, I don't know. I don't know. And yet, like, we lose the ability to connect with the people and the life that we knew. So when we rise up, we've got to find all of that. That's what the soul family is. We are completely rearranging our families, and that can be really scary and uncomfortable. But my prediction is that many of us will have a completely new sphere of influence that is not based on biology, but is based on the soul connections we find with people as we move through this decade. Holy breath. I know. Isn't that the sweetest thing, Trish? Like, oh, Ashley, I know that crystal store. Oh, yeah, man. I got on that. And this is so funny because this is the human side of me. Okay. So I'm still very much human. I got on after that 12/12 thing, and I blasted them on Facebook, and I was like, y'all didn't even know what was going on. Everybody, I mean, the store was packed, and and whatever, it doesn't matter what I said, but I didn't handle it very consciously. And I got blasted right back, and rightly so, because I met the energy of my victimhood, met the energy of most of the people that were in there, and it wasn't pretty, and I never went back. So one of the most beautiful things I've ever heard. Yeah, it really, just this week, and kind of getting this message has changed when I've come to conscious union with my breath, which I do quite a bit just in my own. I'll just be doing dishes or sipping on tea or whatever, walking, and just taking a deep breath and being like, oh my God, that was a holy breath. Like, when you think of your breath as holy, when you take a deep breath and you exhale it, it changes a lot. And it changes, and that consciousness then goes out. It is now made manifest into the world. And that's how we change in consciousness. That's how we change the world, simply by breathing one big conscious breath. And as we slowly exhale, like exhaling with the consciousness of love and blessings to the world and to those around us. Can you imagine if just those of us on this daily tune in today did that more often than not throughout the day? Just that would change. Like, our minds can be blown if you really think about that. And that is like such a sacred gift that we have, to know that our breath now is sacred and holy, and we can help people who don't know what's happening to calibrate to these higher frequencies and these higher expansive consciousnesses that are happening to them, because many people are still afraid of vulnerability. They're afraid to say that they feel like they're going crazy. They're afraid to say that maybe there's things that they're seeing in their life that they're afraid to say that they don't like it, or it's not serving them, and they're still hanging on to a lot, and there's a lot of fear within them. There's so much is changing for many people who are so afraid of change. And what if just our collective and conscious breaths every day, these holy breaths, could just help those people? Many of us are like, I've talked to my family, and they don't hear me. They can't see, they can't hear what I'm saying. And they're okay. Just start breathing conscious breaths for them, or with them. and they don't have to know anything that you're doing, but your holy breath is just holding space for them to come into a higher awareness and a higher understanding of what's within them, and a higher level of courage to start taking action and becoming vulnerable and letting go of that which is no longer serving them. It's a beautiful gift that we all have, is our breath. I'm excited for this to be uploaded today because I hopped on late. Oh, good. Yeah. I love how real you are. It really is a good thing we got triggered and challenged. Yeah. Oh man, I'm still getting triggered. We talked about that yesterday in our ascension circle. Like, I'm far from perfect, and I was sharing with the group some stories about that. And yeah, we're all in this together. Like, I am not any more advanced than any one of you. I'm just talking about it. I'm just facilitating the conversation. Yes, without this community, I would be lost. I would too, Sharon. I've been very lucky this year to have a very close knit community that I've met with on Zoom. Twice a week for over a year now, and it's been my saving grace. My birthday is 2/2. Just realized on 11/11, I'm born on a portal day, and my due date was 2 weeks later. Wow. Yeah, you important. Well, we're all important, but coming early and landing on 2/2, lady. And 2/2, like 2022, that could be a pretty powerful birthday to you. So just pay attention to that. Thank you for reminding us of our power. Yeah. And it reminded me of that too. So this is a message for me just as much as it is for all of you guys too. My birthday is 1/21. I'll be 60. Was having some mental difficulty with this. However, today just realized, thanks to you, I'm in a 6 year, same as 2022. Now I'm so excited, right? You're over the hump, like the 6 is when you're over, like the 5 is when you're like, ooh, you're just like going through the change, and I mean, going through the change of anything is like, rah, it's like the yucky. But going over to the 6, you're like, oh, you can start to breathe. So 60 is gonna be some fun for you, Christina. I can feel it coming. And Trish says the holy breath explanation brings me to the realization as to why I cry almost daily when I take deep infinity breaths. I always feel so connected to source at that time. Yeah, now I know why, right? It's just nice to have some words to it. Like we kind of know that inherently, but we just, like anything, it's taken for granted. Our body just does it. We just breathe. And then as we get on this journey, we know, like, oh, sacred breath, take a deep breath together and unify and all the things. But like when it was put like that, like every breath, I mean, we were literally on 2020 on that great conjunction, were literally like activated so that like our breath became holy to help and serve a higher realm of existence to change the entire planet. That is crazy. And even people who don't even know it, every time they breathe, they're breathing a holy breath. Like, I think that is the most remarkable and most sacred and most beautiful things. And I just want to say thank you for all of you being here for so long today and on this week. So many of you are now becoming regulars, and I appreciate that more than you know. And to be able to be here and breathe our sacred breaths together, the amount of magic that is happening, and it goes beyond magic. The amount of power that is being created right here and right now with every breath that we've all taken during this 48 minutes is so sacred and so beautiful. And I'm so grateful to be able to do that together with you. So thank you all for being here. Love it, to mind blowing it is. And I even have my little minion colored shirt on there, my emoji colored shirt. So yeah, our minds can be blown together. But thank you all so much. We'll see you back tomorrow. Tomorrow we're going to wrap it up and go into what now. Now that you know how all these updates are going and what's all going on, we're going to go into tomorrow and what happens next. So I will see you tomorrow. And if you have loved this, you can by all means buy me a coffee if you like at the link above. At the very least, I would love for you to ask that you just like, subscribe, and even share this with someone who could use this beautiful message that their breath is holy and it matters, and they matter to all of humanity right now. Thanks so much, everyone. Have a good one.